So this is Octane and Caffeine, and first things first, I'll introduce you to some of the play elements for the game. These X cards are disaster cards for the race. So if you land on any of the green spots surrounding that X card, then that disaster applies to you. Once that card is used up, it's discarded and a new one is placed in its spot. And so it keeps the disasters at random. And so players don't know what's behind the card at all. So until they hit it. We also have these random cards, and I put a big question mark on them just because I wanted it. Well, it reminded me of Mario Kart, where the boxes had the random cards, and so these cards have power-ups, and they give you a leg up on the competition. And it could be something as simple as just multiplying your dice roll or adding up your dice roll, 2 dice rolls, or to something as complex as making the other car lose control through the steering mechanic of the game, which we use a spinner for. In terms of the dice, I use an app on the smartphone, just the dice app, and this kind of promotes portability, and so that way people can play wherever they go. And so it speaks up. Everybody knows the person rolled a 2. In terms of the spinner, this is just a little spinner app, and I created this spinner, and it just says left, right, and we can stop it. And then so that determines whether the player goes left or goes right. So this definitely has some portability to it, and the board itself is a whiteboard, and I used wet erase markers, so it's permanent enough to where it won't rub off through gameplay, but also erasable enough to where you can create your own maps, and you can place the disaster cards anywhere you want, and disaster spots you can put as many as you want or as little as you want, and then the buildings you can place as many as you want. So there's a bunch of colors on the board. Green means disaster, so basically these disaster spots are associated to the disaster card they're touching. The red spots are buildings, so you can't land on these. So basically there might be some bottleneck areas of the game where it just makes the game that much more difficult. For example, this spot right here. There's a building, a disaster, and a building. This would be a bottleneck area where a power-up could be used to affect that player and really make him either lose the game or crash his car or what have you. So now that the game is set up, I've gone ahead and picked 2 player pieces, and the player pieces are little Hot Wheel cars, but I decided to use 2 very cool pieces. The Mark V Speed Racer machine, the Speed Machine, and also the Ford Focus RS, which I love very much, and I own a car similar to that. So that's why I picked those 2. The start and finish spots, you can put them anywhere you want, and so I just put them here, and then I wrote the finish over there, and so we would start playing the game. So the Mark 1 will go first. This is the Mark 1's card, and this is the Focus's card.
4.
And so it rolled a 4, and so we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, making our way to the finish line. And then the Focus
5.
rolls a 5, so it would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now the Focus is ahead of the Mark V. And so the Mark V is now angry, and it wants to punish the Focus for cutting him off. So this is where the cards come in. So the Mark V would
6.
roll, and so it gets a 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's in the spot right before the finish line, and that's a freak occurrence.
2.
And so the Mark V, now to make sure the Focus doesn't catch up, drops his power-up card, which is Navigation System Hacked. So turn an enemy player car around and use the spinner to determine the direction. So we'll go to the spinner, and we'll spin it, and just to save on time, I'll stop it, and so it has to go right. Now, the car has to go right before it can move, so the car now goes to the disaster space, and now it's the Focus's turn, but the Focus is in a disaster spot, so it has to take the effects of the disaster, and this is probably the worst card. Search helicopters. Players who land on any of the spaces that helicopter lands on loses 4 turns. So the card is here, and since he landed on one of the spaces the helicopter did, he loses 4 turns. So that means the Mark V has basically just an open runway to win the game. And that was a really, really good play. It was a power play. So that was kind of cool. And so the Mark V will finish the race winning with 6, and it gets to the finish spot, and it's done. And so that's the game. Now, this is a very abbreviated version of the game, but basically that's what it is you can attack the car in front of you. You can attack any car you want. You also have power-ups, so if the Focus could have used its power-up, it had a nitrous 120 shot. And so that multiplies his dice roll by 2. So if he wasn't held up by the helicopter, he could have potentially just completely walked away with the race because he would have moved twice, whatever it rolled. So that's really one of the cool parts of the game, where no race is ever the same, and the games really play out in different ways, and the cards can be used in different ways.